So the conflict perspectives of society include the Marxist perspective, which is the one that we need to study. We need to know about the perspectives that they have of society. We need to understand how society evolves as a result of conflict according to these perspectives, and also evaluate the view of Marxism and how other theorists have portrayed their theory and what's good and bad about it. So we first of all considered whether these concepts were both Marxist functionalists or both. We said that Marxism and functionalism was concerned over the changes that were facilitated by the Industrial Revolution. So they both acknowledged that the Industrial Revolution took place and they were concerned by this. Functionalist concern was that of a positive nature, whereas Marxist as a negative. Conscious actions of humans create major social changes for the better. A truly functionalist view that social change through the action of individuals is a good thing. Marxists do believe that conscious action creates change, but it depends on what kind of change that is. Functionalists believe that social changes follow a smooth transition. Marxists acknowledge or highlight that social change is actually not necessarily smooth and evolutionary and organic, is actually sometimes through conflict and revolution, which then resolves itself and a new society forms. Both of them believe that sociology is a science where it should be studied using positivist methods. We want to look at quantitative patterns and trends within society, and we should study it as such. Both believe that people are unequal. Marxists take a negative stance to this, and functionalists see this as a good thing, where we have people fulfilling their roles. Marxists believe that people are unequal and therefore exploited. Marxists believe that society will evolve to become classless, and this will be the result of some kind of revolution where the evolution of society will come to a point where the structuration of class won't be necessary. In terms of the evolution of society, then, according to Marx, they believe that there have been different periods in history, all of which have been based on the economy or the development of the economy. As we're familiar with the base superstructure model, where everything, all the agencies in society are dependent on the economic base, on money. And over periods of history, that money has taken a different form, but has been the base of the society as it stands. There's been differing balances of power between people in history, the landowners and the monarchy and the aristocracy, and now people like the business owners, and likewise are those with money and therefore power. So we did a task where we thought about the social evolution according to Marx, and so we did this timeline, and we said that the first type of society that Marx said existed was called primitive communism. This is where most people are pretty equal because there's not really much stuff to be had, so status really is only ascribed to those who have that kind of survival of the fittest mentality, where those people who are able to get meat and goods and things like that, and perhaps have a skill, but where you just didn't have anything more than another person, so there wasn't really the opportunity to be unequal. We then move on to a slave society where people decide that they have the right to own and sell another person, and to get that person to do whatever it is they want them to do. So a really, really, truly unequal society where you have a definite division between different groups, where some people actually own another human being. Moving on then to feudalism, where we have a system of self-sufficiency where people grow the crops that they need and work as an extended family to make sure that their needs are met in terms of basic provisions. But again, an inequality where most people lived on the land that was owned by the lord, who had inherited that from his ancestors. And you would work on the land, but then also have somewhere to live on the land. But it would be required that you would maybe barter with your neighbours, but certainly you would grow your own crops and food. Moving on from that, we have a state of capitalism, which is where we are now. So as a result of the Industrial Revolution, mainly catalysed by the Enlightenment, we see a period of capitalism where everything is based on money in the true sense of the form, in terms of wealth, that is characterised and measured through how much money you have. And so this is where the base superstructure model comes into its own, where we have the economic base and the agencies within the superstructure that depend on money. The next change is to socialism. So this is something that Marxists have predicted, that we'll have a period of socialism where everybody's cared for, everyone's seen as important, but we still have a hierarchical system, a stratified leadership where they're the people that embed the socialist values, leading on to the final society where we would eventually end up in communism, where there's true equality for all. Each of these changes would have happened as a result of some kind of conflict, some kind of revolution. We certainly are aware of the changes that were made in slave societies and the conflict that arose as a result of that. And certainly things like feudalism to capitalism, whilst there was no kind of war as such, there was certainly a revolution of equipment and movement of people that happened very, very rapidly. That was a kind of revolution that started. And we've also had, in terms of capitalism, many revolutions, like the French Revolution, for instance, and the formation of the Soviet Union much later, where people attempted to get into a socialist and then with the ambition to reach a communist society. So we see the Enlightenment happening during feudalism, which is the development of scientific rationality, the belief in science and measurements of social facts, moving on from beliefs in like witchcraft and things like that. So Marx talks of historical materialism, basically the way that people link to products, the drive, the need to consume material goods in periods of history. So material needs are known as forces of production. So if you need something, you're almost forcing for it to be produced. So you're creating a demand. So tools were developed to make this easier, and those tools were controlled by people. So the social relations of production, the people that were in control of the tools to make the things. What's happened in society now is we see a system of alienation where once upon a time, like the potter on the bottom right hand side, you would be using tools to hand make products, and you'd really be there from start to finish, and you'd feel a sense of pride and control over what you're making, maybe even a sense of creativity. Whereas now we're alienated from that. So the lady in the top right hand side, her primary job is to make sure that the bottle lids are screwed on the top of the orange juice bottles. She's alienated from her work. She has a lack of control because she's not producing that good from start to finish. She hasn't grown the oranges, picked the oranges, squeezed them, created a pot to put them in, and so on and so forth. She's really alienated from her role, and she's doing a job where she would get paid low wages. She probably wouldn't need any kind of qualifications to do it, and so feels quite disempowered by the role that she's performing. So again, linking people to products, we know that the material needs are the forces of production. So if we take the orange juice, people want the vitamin C, they're thirsty, so they demand that orange juice is produced. So we have the force of production. We then have the people that are helping to make those products, the social relations of production, and certainly the relationship that people have now is much more alienated than it once was, where you would make your own goods from start to finish. So we have a division of labour to make this possible. I'm sure we're all familiar with Fordism, where it was the introduction of the production line to make things quicker, cheaper, more efficient in terms of making consumer goods. And so we need a labour force. We need that alienated labour force to work and be exploited for the benefit of the ruling classes. So we have, again, the bourgeoisie and the proletariat. The bourgeoisie are the owners of the means of production, and the proletariat are the people who work on those production means. And this is known as the capitalist mode of production, the way in which we produce things cheaply, quickly and efficiently for exploiting people to make a profit for the people who own the means of production. And this is how the base superstructure model is formed, and we're familiar with this diagram here, with the superstructure containing the agencies of society, and then which are all dependent on the base, but also fuel the economy within the base to enable society to function. So the base shapes the superstructure, and the superstructure maintains and legitimises the base. So we learn through education, for instance, that we need to get a good job and make lots of money. So we do that, and then we go and make lots of money, and so we put money into the economy through consumer goods, through tax and so on. And so therefore money goes back into the education system, and so the cycle continues. Without the superstructure there wouldn't be the base, but the base basically underpins the whole of the superstructure. So capitalism is maintained, so thinking about why people don't just reject this society and start their own ideas. So we thought about all of these key terms that we need to know for the exam, about how we have forces of production, means of production, the hegemonic group, the fallacy of need, that idea that you need to work hard, earn more and buy that sports car that everybody else thinks is really cool. That we need to consume things, so that idea of false class consciousness, going out to the pub and getting really drunk on a Friday to make the week seem better, where you've been exploited throughout and not earned very much money. Maybe consuming, buying a new pair of shoes because it makes it feel like work is worth the effort and the frustration. So we forget that frustration and go back to work on a Monday morning and do the job that we're set to do, and justly then maintaining the inequality. So one of the questions you could be asked about this is that the 33-mark question is, to what extent has society evolved according to Marxist perspectives, which we'll look at next lesson.